I'm Chris Swann. I'm the Director of Church Planting for CTCA Australia, and it's my privilege to come alongside planters across Australia in lots of different contexts who are joining with what God's doing and helping to reach new people, bring people who are far from God closer to God, and help them grow and mature and live the Christian life in all its fullness and flourishing. We get to work with church planters who are all different, from different backgrounds in a range of contexts: cities, towns, rural areas, regional areas. We get to work with men and women, with people from different cultural backgrounds. Australia is a very diverse place, with people who've arrived from all around the place, as well as our First Nations, and we work with leaders from all sorts of different communities. We also get the opportunity to help serve planters who are pursuing different models and are drawn to different kind of convictions around how to begin their church plant, even as they all pursue together the common mission of God. So we work with planters who are perhaps taking a more traditional approach, often from particular backgrounds. In Southeast Asia, I worked with one Korean church planter who found, in order to even begin to gather a planting team to come along with him on the adventure of church planting, he needed to begin his worship service, and even the 5 a.m. prayer meetings that are a kind of regular feature of Korean Christianity. There wasn't a thing to join until he'd started those, and so he had to start before he could even start with a team. And at the other extreme, we work with planters often in the kind of developments on the fringes of some of the big cities, where there is nowhere to gather large churches. There's schools and community halls aren't always available, and sometimes there's suspicion and hostility about churches, given the things that have gone on in Australian culture in the past, some scandals and other ways the church has failed and fallen short. And so they're not launching big at all or trying to have big gatherings. They're working in networks of house churches, micro churches, more simple approaches that puts making disciples front and centre. And we get to work with all of those kinds of people in lots of different ways, and we learn lots of great things from that. We learn about the priority of joining with God's mission and seeing where God is at work rather than what can't be done. We enjoy seeing cross-pollination happen as we help different planters lean into the strengths of who God has made them, or the context He's calling them into, and even their convictions around how to go about planting. And seeing planters teaching from and learning from each other. They serve each other, they pray together. We tend to gather them in we call them kitchen table sized groups of 5 or 6 or 7 planters sharing together, praying together, learning together, and sharing that journey, particularly in the early phases, without a one-size-fits-all model, but with a real commitment to grow together and reflecting our commitment and conviction that it takes a movement to reach a community and a country as diverse as Australia. And no one church or kind of church or model of church planting can be a movement in and of itself. God's gifting and calling people differently, and it's a great privilege to serve across some of that breadth with the partnerships we've been developing. There's lots of hostility and resistance to Christianity in Australia, as I mentioned, but there's also a kind of great openness. There are people who God has brought here from other parts of the world who are open to exploring, and God's moving in some pretty powerful ways among people of Middle Eastern backgrounds who've come to Australia. There's also just a kind of broad curiosity and a lack of awareness of what the Christian faith is about, even among pretty secular Australians who've grown up here. And so there's great opportunities, and it's a great privilege to serve and come alongside planters, as we get to do in City to City Australia. It helps as well that we have some global connections through the City to City network around the world, but also particularly through Fuller and the Church Planting Initiative based at the seminary there, just because Australia is a global place and connected globally, and we need to learn and take advantage of all that we can glean from others serving in other contexts. And so these are some of the things we're learning and the ways we're seeing God work, and it's a real privilege to be part of it.